Welcome to the Ever So Lean podcast, the show that ignites your passion for leadership and empowers you to develop a culture of continuous improvement. I'm your host, Matt Sims, and in each episode, we bring you fascinating insights and invaluable tips from our incredible lineup of guests. What do they all have in common? Well, I'll tell you, they share an unwavering dedication to excellence and are the experts in driving engagement, improving metrics, and reducing costs.
The Ever So Lean podcast with Matt Sims. You know it makes sense.
This episode is sponsored by Catalyst Consulting Limited. Catalyst Consulting exists to help people and organisations work better today and be ready for tomorrow. They have a rich history of igniting business transformation using business agility, lean, Six Sigma, strategy deployment, agile and change management. They can help you and your organisation to develop the skills necessary to work and manage differently. To find out more, check out catalystconsulting.co.uk. Russell Watkins is the co-founder of Senpai and is dedicated to helping organisations enhance their business performance. With a background in operations, materials and lean across automotive, aerospace and construction equipment sectors, Russell's lean expertise spans the globe from shop floors to boardrooms in the UK, Europe, the US, China, India, Japan and South America. He's also driving a digital startup focused on lean skills and guiding manufacturers to seizing Industry 4.0 opportunities. Russell authored the book Adventures in Leanland and is a respected speaker and serves as an awards judge. His passion lies in factories, which provide the soundtrack to his life. Having trained and coached over 1,000 individuals, Russell has a wealth of stories to share. Discussing mistakes in a continuous improvement career is vital for growth and learning. It promotes transparency, trust, and a culture of ongoing improvement. By openly addressing errors, individuals and organisations can learn from each other, problem solve, and prevent costly mistakes. Sharing mistakes also humanises professionals, fosters innovation, and builds stronger and more supportive teams. Now, today on the Ever So Lean podcast, Russell shares stories from his journey that can help you as you move forward in your individual and organisational journeys. Russell, welcome to the Ever So Lean podcast.
Matt, thank you very much. Great to be here.
Opening the kimono, do you know what it reminds me of? The sound of that, right? It reminds me of when we used to go camping. We had one rule in the caravan, right? You know what one rule, but we used to call that the kimono. So when you say opening the kimono, I'm picturing going in and opening the toilet seat up. I'm sure it's not.
Well, it's close to it, actually. It's to do with being naked. The phrase "opening the kimono" is one of those Japanese aphorisms, and basically it comes from if you just open the kimono slightly and show a bit of yourself, metaphorically your naked body, or show a bit of the real you, then you can build the relationship a bit better.
Does it really?
Yeah.
I thought you were winding me up.
No. I think it's been featured in books in Japan from 1890s, because the Japanese are traditionally very closed off society. You know, they're not very emotional, but there's an awful lot of wisdom in how they try to get people to engage and interact, particularly coming through Toyota production system. Some of these little pithy little quotes are really good to remember, that even though you're there as supposedly the lean expert, which is arguable, then you should always open the kimono and let people see a bit of vulnerability, because it makes them more comfortable.
Wow. And it's so true as well. It does, doesn't it? It really does. It really does. That's why I deliberately always mess up the introduction on these podcasts ever so slightly, to make the guests feel more comfortable. You know, I could do it perfectly every time, but I don't deliberately.
Well, that's all right. It's more human, as you say. And the reason I wanted to come on and talk to you is because if this is a more natural podcast, I think people respond to people just chirping, talking honestly, unscripted.
Yeah, they absolutely do. It's more genuine, I think.
Yeah.
There's lots of other podcasts available, and they tend to be very business-like. It's like being in a business meeting. You're hearing these two people interact. It's very professional. You don't get none of that here. None of that professionalism with me, I'm afraid. It ain't like that.
Please do.
It's just two blokes having a chat.
Fair play.
So tell us a little bit about your career path then, because it's remarkable where you've been and what you've done. It really is.
So I started off years and years ago back in finance. So I got into manufacturing back in 1993 when just about to go around the world, needed to pay for it. So got a job in my then girlfriend, now wife's mother's factory First time I've been in a factory, actually, and it was like coming home. It was wonderful. And the sound of a factory has been the ambient soundtrack to my life since. So worked there for a few months, absolutely loved it in stores and planning. Then went traveling, came back and decided that that was the career for me, not the degree in finance I started with.
That's often the case, though. That happens so often.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, it resonates with something else I do. So I do some alumni work with my old uni, although I've stopped that now because I'm more concerned about vocational people. But even the university grads, you get them on a Zoom or you have a coffee with them, fourth year, and the university has riled them up into worrying about what they're going to do for the next 10 years and plotting their course. And the first thing you end up doing for a couple of weeks is calming them down and saying, don't worry, for the next few years, just try stuff, give it a go, try this, try that. Best case, you find something you like. Worst case, you rule something out, but no one's going to hold it against you.
It's a really good philosophy. What is it about factories that spark that ember inside you then? What is it that you really liked?
Do you know, I think it's actually in my blood because I never thought twice about factories. I was always kind of interested in Japan, but TPS at that point, Toyota, not particularly interested when I was a kid. But thinking back now, my father was in factories for a while. I've done ancestry over the past couple of years. Going all the way back hundreds of years, I've had people in factories. And my grandfather, my favourite grandfather, in fact, probably my favourite man who ever lived, he built Spitfires in the war at Vosper Thornycroft in Southampton. So there's like a long lineage of factories. So I don't know whether there's a part of me that's wired DNA-wise to like factories. But if I try and articulate it, I like the buzz. I love the apparent simplicity, but the complexity of millions of variables coming together to create flow and the problems it throws up. And the fact that at the middle of it, you've got people who are trying to get this better, trying to get stuff out the door. And they form their own little families. They have families away from their families. And it's just it's a nice little socio-technical bubble.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I spent a lot of time when I worked at Royal Mail on the shop floor. I used to work in a mail centre at one point, and the mail would come in through one door, it'd flow through all these different areas and then flow out the other end of the building. And there was just something about the hustle, the bustle, and you're right, the little families, and everyone would sit together and eat together in the canteen. There was like a mini climate of social life that goes on within the building. You mix with certain people, you see the same people every day. I know what you mean. I miss that. I genuinely do miss that, actually. That was really nice time.
Oh, it's fabulous. And you probably found this as well in Royal Mail. So I've spent a lot of time in boardrooms and I've spent more time on shop floors. If you ask me to compare the brightness, the sheer processing power, I don't mean degrees and achievements through universities, the sheer processing power of the people on the shop floor versus the people in the boardroom, no difference. Often smarter on the shop floor. It's just that they learned through their hands. They didn't like school. They didn't have opportunities. And if you want to get savaged and have some banter that will cut your knees off, you go to the shop floor. There are smart people there.
Yeah, absolutely. And they understand it far better than anyone in a boardroom will. They're dealing with this situation every day, that product every day, that part of the production line every day, those issues every day. They are the ones that get it.
It's amazing that lean people like me or managers turn up to factories and they go and watch somebody who's been doing an operation 9 hours a day for 10 years. And they presume to think that in 10 minutes they can see more. In fact, once I did some work on secondment to Lotus. Do you mind if I go off on a quick story?
You go for it. Go on.
I was sent on secondment. I was on secondment to Lotus, and it was a VX220. It was a launch of like a supercar for Vauxhall, and there was a problem with the windscreens cracking. So first they sent me to Belgium to find out why the windscreens were cracking. So I went and I did my usual thing. Can you tell me where the team leader is? Went and had a chat to the team leader. Do you mind if I watch the line? Here's the problem. What do you think the problem is? And he said, you can watch it, but the problem ain't here. The problem is with the glass manufacturer. I said, okay, I'll watch it anyway. I concluded he was right. So then they sent me to Peru for 26 hours.
Oh, what a shame.
Well,
26 hours.
Well, the problem was my daughter had just been born, so I didn't want to go up to Machu Picchu because I needed jabs, and it was our first child, and I didn't know how. I didn't know then that you should be rubbing their faces in mud and stuff. But anyway, I went to Peru, talked to the team leader in Peru, and the team leader said to me, yeah, I'll show you what the problem is. And he showed me, and I went back to Lotus and I said, the problem is this. They said, great, thank you very much. Today, you could have found this out yourself. You've just got to ask the people doing the work, and the people managing the work directly.
What a lesson.
You could have sent a semi-trained chimp to do what I did.
But you still got to go to Peru for 26 hours. Good fun. But it's so often the case, though, we skip over the people who are actually doing the work. And the other thing with it as well, those people might have been doing that role for a long time, right? They're long service. They've been there 10, 15 years, and they know how to overcome an issue. And because they overcome that issue every single day, they found that little workaround. The boardroom might not be aware of that workaround. All of a sudden, that member of staff retires or leaves and goes off and enjoys themselves, and then problems start. And then everyone goes, yeah, that's always been like that. But no one knows how to fix it because it's been isolated with that person's knowledge.
Quite right with their tacit knowledge. It hasn't found its way onto standardized work or anything. There's two fascinating things about that. And the one is that people are very flexible. I've watched operators do like an obstacle course to get to do their work. So they reach around this, they bend for that, they step over the oil, they grasp the crappy tool. Somehow they manage to get the work done in spite of many problems. The great thing about people is they're very flexible. The terrible thing about people is they're very flexible. So those things that are abnormal, they become normal. So they cease to see them as a problem. So they cease to talk about them. Now you couple that with the fact that management and quite often lean people don't listen to them, and they stop chirping the ideas up. And so the communication flow stops. So there's like a double whammy thing going on there.
Yeah, you end up with like two companies, don't you? You've got the shop floor organisation and then you've got the boardroom organisation, and they're so separate from each other, yet they're so dependable upon each other.
It's true. And our job is to learn to listen, not cursory listen, actually ask the right question and listen. And if we're really smart, we find a way to join the business pain to the pain of the people on the shop so that there's a what's in it for me all the way through, because then everybody's aligned and pointing the same way.
But why do you think that is, though? Why do you think that there's such an apparent reluctance?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think maybe there's some ego involved. Once you get promoted, then you know more. You're in a more senior position, so therefore you shouldn't need to ask for help. You don't need to admit vulnerability, uncertainty. I think there is still a snobbery that people online aren't as smart as people who aren't online, which is just plain wrong. And it goes back to what we said a minute ago. But I think also, and I could talk for people like me, lean professionals here, we have to be careful that our egos don't get in the way and we don't start to think we're a bit special when we're not actually doing any work. We're just observing and trying to help people improve the way they do work. So I think there's a mix of ego and an unwillingness to be vulnerable. Because to be fair, it takes a brave person, an ops director, to invest 15, 20 minutes a day going on the shop floor. That's something else they're not doing. So they have to see the benefit of it. And it takes a bit of letting go of ego to ask somebody a question that you don't know the answer to because you might be found out.
Yeah, it's that imposter syndrome there, isn't it? You kind of feel like that will expose you as not having the knowledge you need to do your job.
That's absolutely right, actually. And the great thing about opening the kimono, to bring us back to the subject of it, is if you open the kimono, you'd be stunned that very few people judge you. They just want to talk about what the problems are if you ask the right question.
So it's in your own mind, the perception is you will be judged and you will be frowned upon and looked down upon as not capable. But in reality, that's not the case.
No, rarely. There's an old Zen thing about when a practiced monk turns up to a monastery, they turn him away for the first 3 days. You'll see it echoed in Fight Club, actually, that Brad Pitt film. But there's a bit like that if you go to a shop floor where they've had lots of initiatives, where the management have launched this, that, and the other time after time, and they've all fallen on their arse. And there's a big 70, 80% of people who want to do good. They don't just want to clock in. They want to improve their own lot and they want the business to crack on and survive. But there have been so many initiatives that it's not worth getting on this bus because there'll be another one along later.
Yeah.
So why bother?
Yep.
So one of the secrets, going back to your man Deming, is, I think he called it constancy of purpose. Whatever you do, as long as your path is sensible, don't worry it ain't perfect. Just keep ploughing it because people will get on board because they're waiting for you to flip-flop.
Yeah, that flavour of the month issue is sometimes I've been in environments before where we've had that flavour of the month. We've rolled this out, then we've rolled this out, then we've rolled this out. And over 6 months, we've rolled out 3 or 4 different initiatives. All of them have fallen flat on their face. They've not been adopted. They've not sustained. And then we go and roll something else out. And I've actually done that where I've stood in front of people and said, do you know what? Yeah, we have fallen on our face with the last 4 or 5 things. This is why you've told us it hasn't worked. So I've spun it round a little bit, sort of say, look, we've listened to you. This is what you've told me. So I've kind of shown that weakness within me because I've gone, yeah, look, I hold my hands up. I made a mistake in how we did that. But what we now want to do is this, and it builds upon all those other things. And the reaction that I had to that was brilliant. Everyone wasn't sitting there going, oh, what are we doing this for? Feet up on the table. They were like, come on, let's get on with it and let's do it. Let's do it that way.
Great work.
Definitely changed the perception.
So you opened the kimono.
Yeah, there you go. And I didn't know I was even opening it at that time. But now I know I was opening it. But it's so true. If you show that little bit of humility, is that what it is? Humility?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Show that little bit of, like you say, weakness in yourself, because we're all human beings. Just because if I wear a suit every day and a tie and you wear overalls and a pair of gloves doesn't make me a better person than you.
No.
And we all make mistakes. We all do things wrong. We all learn. I don't know why we're so afraid to. I'd love to understand the psychology of why we are so afraid to show.
Well, we're hardwired to protect, and we want to protect our income, our position, and there's status involved in there somewhere, and it's a natural thing. But all of this came from, I'm currently trying to write a second book, Misadventures in Lean Land. The first one was called Adventures in Lean Land. Second one, Misadventures, where I'm trying to talk about mistakes that people like me make and that companies make. And I put out a post maybe 3 months ago about how do you spot a good consultant from a bad consultant? And there were 5 questions. And then there was a 6th question. The 6th question, I'd say, is probably the most important. And the 6th question was, you asked the consultant, what repeated failing have you learned from? And if the consultant can't give you an answer to that, or is scratching around, you haven't got somebody who reflects, because it's the most important question. I go back to when I learned from my Toyota sensei, Mixan Toshiyuki Moroka, and we were ploughing around the country, and he was savaging me via an interpreter for 2 hours a night. And he was he'd give nothing away. You'd be training a team during the day, and then through the interpreter, you'd say, okay, so Mixan, how was it? And he'd say, well, what do you think? And it was all reflected back to you. And it took me a while to realize that he was trying to develop what Toyota see as the Holy Grail, which is self-reliance. If you can get to the end of every day in your operations or lean life, and I'm not talking journaling, if you can get to the end of every day, and if you can be pretty objective about what you did okay and what you didn't, and find your own gap, you'll get self-reliant, and you'll Kaizen personally, you'll go upwards. The problem is our current trend on social media, and we all fall into this, is it's a world of lean queens out competing each other to demonstrate that they have the answer and their answer is right.
You see it all the time, don't you, in the posts that come up, and then people comment below, and then you can see that going in there. It's like kids bickering sometimes.
It is, and it's fascinating because I have to pull myself back because it's easy to get defensive.
Yeah,
it's very easy to get defensive. So I've been actively trying for the last year not to get defensive and just to acknowledge and say, oh, hang on, there might be a different view here. But it's the wrong metric, Being right is a wrong metric. The metric we should have is, and I read this recently and I posted about this about a year ago, if you're not looking back 2-3 years and cringing at what you put out there on social media, you ain't learning.
I so do that as well. I have that on Facebook. They pop up, don't they, on your memories. And I read some of the things that I put 10 years ago and stuff. And I want to die. Like, it's just awful. my wife the other day, right, when I first started on the radio, I was on a community radio station where I used to live. And one of the first shows I did, and my wife sent me she'd recorded it. She was standing at home. She was listening and she recorded it on her phone and she sent it to me. And honestly,
did you ask her to record it for you?
No, absolutely not. And I nearly died when I heard this the other day. And, I'm tempted to add it in. I might add it in. If you hear it in a minute, I added it in, all right, when I did the edit, but it was so cringe. And I used to write everything down word for word. So I just read the script because I was so nervous. And a song finished and I put the fader up and I went, that's the Pointer Sisters. I'm so excited. Are you? And I pressed play. Oh, honestly, Russell, I just cringe at the thought of it. But that shows, though, on the other side of the coin, I think to what the point you're trying to make, you can really see how you've developed. You can really see how far you've come. So perhaps those cringy posts you look back on just make you realise how much you've grown as a human being.
Well, maybe not quite enough. But interestingly, on your radio broadcasting, so at points, have you pinpointed specific habits that you want to stop?
Yeah, absolutely. Ums and ahs.
Okay, good, because there's a difference between being hard on yourself and saying that was rubbish, and saying, yeah, that was all right, that was all right, that's a gap, that was all right, that's a gap, and it's that acknowledging some it was okay, but that's a gap is a good thing. Mind, I can't speak. Every podcast I'm on, I listen back to, because I had a pretty serious stutter as a child. I can still hear it.
Ah, that's interesting.
And so when I listen back to this, because I'll want to find the gap in my knowledge from talking to you. When I listen back to this, all I'll hear is stutters, and it'll be excruciating.
Yeah, but no, you've got to remember, no one else, I mean, I haven't heard you stutter yet. No one else notices that stuff. I've just found that link. Do you want to hear that link?
Of course I do, yeah.
I'll put your cup down. You're going to spit in it everywhere when you hear this. I've got to make sure the volume's turned up on it. Right, this is shocking. Oh, dear. So bearing in mind, I'd only been doing this. This is probably my first or second show I'd ever done, right?
Go, Matt Sims with you through till 10. 1984 now with the Pointer Sisters. I'm so excited. Are you?
Oh, I just die a little bit inside. It's horrific.
I'm not certain if you tried.
Oh.
I don't think, even if you're at a funeral, I don't think you could have said that flatter, you know.
Honestly, but at the time in my mind, it was, whoa, I'm really energetic. It's a Saturday night, prime time, party time. Oh, it's just cringe. That's just shocking. But your point is right. You do. You look back at some of the things you say, but that's how you learn. And some people might be saying similar things. So your example. So when I look on LinkedIn, I look at some of the closet lean experts that are posting. I look at some of the things they're saying. They're not saying anything different to what I might have said 10 years ago. It's just where they are on their journey. And I think back to that time, how would I have responded if someone would have come wading in and gone, this is nonsense. What are you talking about? This is how it is. I would have responded better if someone had put their arm around me and said, listen, this is what I've experienced. Yeah. This is what happened. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. Quite right. I can't agree with that anymore. And I think perhaps a way around it is if we all start to operate a buddy system, like Japanese manufacturing plants do. They used to have a strong plant in Japan, and then one of the overseas plants that was carnage and was struggling, they would buddy up so that there was somebody who you could talk to, learn from, and there was what was called a window person. So somebody in planning would have a window person, a one-to-one person they talked to in planning in Japan, operations, quality, and so there are all these learning streams going on. And that whole thing, it's hard to be savage to somebody, really savage, if you've got a face to them and if there's a name. And that whole thing is a bit senpai kohai. It's a bit like our business. And the kohai learns, pins her ears back and learns. And the senpai, all right, they know a bit more, but one of their jobs is to show vulnerability and to bring the kohai on to go past them, to be better than them, which takes us back again to the kimono.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? If I could change one thing about the language that we use in business, I would scrap the word manager. I'd ban the word manager, and nobody's a manager. You are a leader or a coach, because I just hate it. People go, I'm a senior manager. And I'm like, are you? Or shouldn't you be a senior coach or a senior leader because you lead your people?
It's fascinating. You know, there's I'm no expert on this, but I see a lot written about this, and I've obviously been around organizations a lot. There's something in that I really agree with, in that if you are looking after a group of people, you've got a coach and you've got to lead them somehow. So why is there a different word? But there is also something in the fact that if we all try and be inspirational Simon Sinek style leaders all the time, who's actually doing the work of, right, my team is here, I've got a space there, maybe they can go into that, how do I develop this person? There are some management things, some practical things that have to be done, but maybe there's a better word for it.
Yeah, I think just manager makes it sound like they're a dictator. Or maybe that's just my perception because I've been in that environment where a manager has been the dictator. But for me, it just sounds like I say you do what the manager says. You don't answer back. You get on with
it. Yeah. No, I think I've seen a lot of that over the years. What is refreshing is that as the generations flush through and we get the millennials, Gen Y, there's less command and control out there now. There are some really crusty old command and control styly people in manufacturing who are starting to flush towards the end of their career. And it's nice that a different way of doing things is coming through now.
Yeah, I get the best buzz out of coaching people. And if you'd have said to me 15 years ago that you'd have loved talking to people and just helping them get to the root cause of the problem and then encouraging them and how to solve it without telling them, I'd have said, I haven't got time for that. I'm in too much of a rush.
Yeah.
Just got to tell them what to do. But I think as I've got older and perhaps a little bit wiser, I think that coaching side, if I walk away from a site and I've been able to influence somebody and help them on their journey, that's an amazing feeling.
Oh, it is absolutely. And funny that you had a question down somewhere. One of your prompting questions was, what makes you tick? And I laboured long and hard over that. And I wrote down two things really. And I wrote them down, but wasn't sure I was going to say them because they sound cheesy. The first one was seeing people. I put down seeing people understand and grow. The greatest thing for me is when somebody turns to you after you've shown them something, physically shown them so they could try it, and they say, "Is that it?" That for me is the most fabulous feeling because it means they've grasped it, they're confident, and they can crack on with it without needing you again. And related to that, I've got people I've coached in previous years. I've got an operator from 2005 who's now global VP for a business. Now, by no stretch was all of his development down to me, but there were some intervention points that I was critical in, he tells me. And then there was a manager who was stuck, and we had a fairly decent verbal scuffle on his shop floor about 5 years ago. And he texted me a couple of days afterwards. I was a bit uncertain because occasionally I've been too Japanese styly in my teaching. Within rapport, you can be harsh to help people get to the next stage. But he texted me, and now he's MD of a £200 million business. Again, he's done that. But nice to know that you've played a small part.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure the part you played actually was quite substantial because that coaching and that guidance, it comes across when I talk to you. You can tell that you're that sort of person. You do that.
Thank you. Well, that's another man's fault.
Damn you. You're a charlatan. You're a fraud.
I prefer snake oil salesman. By the way, the second thing in terms of what makes me tick, and there's all the usual stuff about wanting to see businesses drive on and improve, and a passion for UK manufacturing. Which, by the way, UK manufacturing today, having dropped from 7th to 9th in the world in terms of our position, today we've overtaken France, and we are now 8th in the world again, which is fabulous news.
Wow.
But there's still a long way to go. But the other thing I was going to say was humour, finding the humour in things, because there's some nice, dark, gallows humour on shop floors, and you can unlock people and get rapport with well-judged humour, I think.
Do you know what? I completely agree. And I think going back to what we said earlier about how you get very business podcasts and they're very, very official and very technical, I find you can break down so many barriers on a shop floor with individuals if you just add in some well-placed humour. I'm not talking about going down there and giving them your best Ricky Gervais, like terribly offensive joke, but if you can just make light of something, it does break down barriers.
It does, and humour can be a powerful way of communicating as well. So I've got 3 quick examples for you where humour has really helped. I had an old boss. He was a boss of a £2 billion group, and he would communicate primarily through metaphor and stories. So you had to listen hard, pick the bones out, and then you know what he wanted. And he called me into his office one day and he said, "Russ, I had a dream last night that I was run down by a forklift." I said, "Okay, that's not good news." And he said, "And you know what? Its forks were empty." And then he asked me to leave his office. He said, "That's it." Now, I'd been working with him for about a year at that point, and I knew that what that little story meant was your focus is going to shift now. He was saying, in our 17 factories, I'm not now confident that we are driving our forklifts safe enough in the factories. And I want to make sure that we have a push on that to make sure certification is right and pedestrians are behaving right and it's all gangways labelled up, etc. But he was also saying the forks are empty bit is also, I think we have too many forklift movements. We're moving around like a cab, a taxi, dropping off and then hunting for a fare,
right.
Driving around dangerously with empty forks when we should be like a bus. You should never be empty of passengers.
That's really clever. So what, he planted the seed effectively and then just stood back and let you grow it?
That's it. And you can do that. You can do really smart things like that. I learned this from my sensei, and I was in a factory. I'll get back to the humour in a minute. I was in a factory about 5 years ago. I was working with them. Medical devices, injection molding and assembly. The injection molding shop, they would mold everything and they would send it all to their warehouse, world's biggest warehouse. And then when they needed it, they would pull it back into assembly. So it was decoupled. What they should have been doing was reducing their batch sizes molding to order and pulling into assembly. So I was walking the shop with the MD and he just couldn't grasp that this was a problem until I told him that the door to the warehouse, I will only ever refer to that as a door of failure from now on. Every time a pallet of parts goes from mold through that door, you've opened the door of failure. And that phrase stuck in his head and it got him over the point where he could now see, okay, so I'm tying all that up in the warehouse. I've got to pay for it, blah, 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 the inventory, etc. Back to the humour. Walking past a cell in JCB, actually, about 10 years ago it was. There's a Norwegian artist called Edvard Munch. He did a picture called The Scream. It's a famous painting called The Scream. I walked past this cell. I never met the cell person. And this photo was up there, pinned up, taped up beautifully on the wall. And that told me everything I need to know about where that person was. Either they have a very strong dark sense of humour or it's carnage there and it needs some help to sort something out. And then in the same factory, I was in another cell. And 5S where you organise your tools on the shelf. Yeah. On the shelf, he put, and I'm going to sanitise this, he put some tape there where the hammers should be. And he put effing hammers, only effing hammers. Now, if you're smart, that tells you everything you need to know about how to proceed with 5S there. Somebody's up for it, so you've got an ally. Other people aren't buying into it. What's the reason why? So those little bits of comedic things that you see up, they're also breadcrumbs that help you learn how to unlock what to do next.
Are you ready to elevate your team's ways of working? Are you seeking fresh insights and growth opportunities? Our experts will assess your team's practices, providing valuable insights for improvement and celebration. Reward and recognise your team with this certification tailored specifically for creating an improvement culture. The BQF Academy accreditation acknowledges your journey, outstanding outcomes, and future plans. Whether you utilise Lean, Six Sigma, project management, or continuous improvement techniques, this certification celebrates your incredible work and positive impact. Propel your team's performance to new heights with the BQF Team Excellence Culture Certification. Visit www.bqf.org.uk today and let's celebrate your success together.
13-time Shingo Prize winner Dr. Jeffrey Leiker and Toyota Kata author Mike Rother have created the Improvement Kata and Coaching Kata online course. This inexpensive, compact program is designed to transform your thinking and approach, making you a highly skilled learner and coach. Engage in deliberate practice to turbocharge your progress. You also get lifetime access to the materials, including all of the bonus interviews. Why pay up to 10 times the price elsewhere, listening to some consultant, when you can gain direct insights from the masters themselves? Skip the rest and go with the best. Join us today and embark on your journey to excellence. Just click on the link below to start your journey.
Build a connection as well, because you can't do it on your own. You've got to do it with the people. And if you can, like you say, you can build that connection. And it's always different as well, isn't it? You've got my mind thinking back over my past now. It's running through all the experiences I've had. But it's different in different organizations and different with it, even within an organization. It's different on different projects or different areas of the factory floor.
And that's why one of our prime jobs as lean people and Kaizen thinking people is we need to be good with people. We need to be good at listening and reading people so that we can match their mood and match their language patterns even. And something like NLP is a useful thing to be able to know if somebody is speaking in visual terms. I see what you mean. Or it's clear to me now. Or somebody is more auditory. I hear what you're saying. If you can tune into their language patterns, you can establish rapport on the same kind of language levels.
Interesting. This is like neuroscience involved here. You're getting quite deep. This is good. I like this.
It is. It's a bit of neuroscience. It's some people think it's West Coast hokum, but it's worked for me.
My wife did a psychology degree, and I always feel that she's psychoanalyzing me when we're talking about stuff. And I spend more time thinking about how she's trying to catch me out than I do about actually answering the questions she's asking me.
Well, that may be that. Funny enough, that takes you skirts on one of my areas, because I can be a little bit intense in terms of my mistakes. And I found in the past that because I'm keen to understand, if you rattle off too many intense, pointed questions, can take some people back and can be a bit alarming, because it can feel like I'm being probed, or he's trying to expose me, whereas actually it's to understand. So from my perspective, that's a failure of framing it for them. I've gone in too hard.
And do you find that sometimes you need to change that framing depending on who the audience is? Because obviously everyone's different.
Yeah, absolutely. And most of the time you judge it right, because you generally start softly, and then you feel out where the boundaries are, and you can feel where you can push. And sometimes you get it wrong. And whenever you get it wrong, you've got to learn from it, because you've misread the person.
I've walked the shop floor before with a line manager of that work area, and there's been an issue, and I've said, come on, let's go and talk to the people. Let's find out what happened. And the line manager will ask proper closed questions. Did you do this? Have you done that? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? I'm expecting them to go down there and go, talk to me about why this happened, or what do you think about that, or how often does this occur, to bring the sort of the story out of the people.
Yeah. Well, that's a great example. You've touched on something really important there, Matt. Art Smalley's a smart man. He was one of the first non-Japanese managers in Japan, I think.
I was just going to say, maybe it's a different person.
He's a bit like John Shook in that he's American, but he's very smart. I think it was Art Smalley who codified. No, it wasn't. It was Stephen Spear who codified it. Stephen Spear. And I nicked this because good lean people are magpies. I nicked this years ago. For managers, this is a tremendous gift. If you want to know how strong your standardized work is to build in quality safely and hit your cycle times, there are 4 questions you can ask as you go down. And you, Matt, have just given me a couple of them. So the first question is to go to a cell, and I'll see if I can remember these. It's to go to a cell and say, can you tell me, how do you do this work? How do you do this? Just the open question. How do you do it? And then the second question is, how do you know you're doing it correctly? And then you're hoping that they're going to point you to some kind of standardized work or SOP or something that's given them guidance rather than just their way of doing it. The third question is, how do you know your outcome is going to be defect free? Which takes you towards the quality built in the process. Are there any gauges, any checks? Are they doing any quality checks? And the fourth question is, what do you do if you have a problem? Which tells you whether the management team have given them simple, clear escalations to get problems surfaced early, and whether they know what they are and they follow them. 4 questions. I could live to be 1,000 and never come up with 4 questions that smart, but I nicked them.
But that's what you say. It's like a magpie. You go and you collect these gems. I've got a whole back catalogue repertoire in my brain of things I've nicked from other people that I repeat all the time. Well, I'm currently reading this Giving Wings to Her Team by Jeffrey K. Leiker and Tylo Schwartz.
Yes. Toyota Carter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They have a card, like you can download, you go on the little website, you click on the QR code, it takes you to their website, and you can download the questions that you ask for people when they're starting to drive improvement projects. You talk about the target condition, the actual condition, obstacles they're facing. It's a really, really interesting way of thinking that aligns perfectly to what you were just saying. So interesting.
It does. And intuitively, Toyota Carter feels right to me in terms of the thinking way, because it doesn't just get you to blindly try and improve anything anywhere. It asks you to consider, where do you want to go and what are the specific barriers? So it's a discipline, I think. It's a mental discipline.
Absolutely. It's a really good way of describing it, actually. It is a discipline. It's a different way of thinking. It's a scientific way of thinking.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And it takes you back to, like you were saying before, about the senseis and Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off. He was teaching a discipline that the student didn't know what it was all about. He was getting frustrated thinking, I'm not learning karate. I want to learn karate. And he was like, wax on, wax off. And then later that night, he threw the punch. He said, do wax on, wax off. And he threw the punch, wax off. And he knocked his hand out of the way.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing, embedded learning without learning. It takes some skill to do that.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about Toyota Cutter and have free lifetime access to the materials, click the link in the description below and go and sign up to the e-learning, where you can learn about this incredible approach for less than £100, all courtesy of the legends that are Jeffrey K. Leiker and Mike Rother. It doesn't get better than that. So tell us some more of your mistakes then. Not that I'm picking on you, Russ. I'm sure you made some successes too.
No. I signed up for this. I want to talk about opening the kimono, and because of what I said a while ago about social media and LinkedIn where we're all defending our positions. I think we have to start opening our kimonos. And it seems to me that as you get a little older, I just turned 50 a couple of years ago. As you get a bit older, I think you feel a bit more secure in admitting where you've not done things as well as you could in the past. So in that spirit, I've got 5 mistakes I want to talk about. They fall into 3 categories. One is the way I lead activities. Another is places where I failed to practice what I've learned. And the third is where in planning transformations, lean transformations, I've got it wrong. So I've got 3 broad categories here. So the first one, I'll start simple. The first one is 5S gone wrong and a sensei's 2-word rebuke. So it's 1999. I'm with my Toyota sensei in Edinburgh. We're in a metal company, quite a high-end metal company. One of the earliest things you learn to lead when you're being trained by Toyota, Honda or Nissan engineers is a 5S activity, like a 3S blitz on the shop floor. So I had to lead it. It was a massive, massive area. It was absolutely huge. He'd let me choose the area and knowing that it was too big. And I spent the 4 hours that we had allocated for this running around, chivying the team, trying to get the area looking decent at the end. I worked my socks off. And he watched the entire thing with the interpreter for 4 hours. Didn't help apart from the cleaning. He always loved the cleaning. And then at the end, I said to him, "Hey, Mick-san, okay, do you like it?" And his 2 words to me were, "Very pretty." Now, if you know anything about 5S and you do, very pretty is the worst thing you can say because you've just put lipstick on a pig. And he took me over and he showed me a couple of tool rollers that there were broken teeth on. He showed me some material that was in a bad condition. And that 2-word early rebuke has informed the way I do 5S ever since. Go small, go deep, set the example, show them how. You only get one chance to train their eyes. And if you train them at a very surface level, that's what they're going to do.
And it's such a true story as well. I think we can all, those of us that have worked in an environment where we've tried to do the 5S, and especially when you first start out on a lean journey in an organization, and 5S is normally the thing you do first of all, just to win people round. And you bring the senior guys down to see what you've done. And that looks great. Really pretty. I can feel it. I feel it for you.
Well, it works the other way. I've done very, very good 5S activities with teams where we have tackled real safety, quality and delivery problems, but it hasn't looked pretty afterwards because the purpose of 5S isn't to make it look sexy. And the MD has come down and is expected to see something pretty, not something that functions better in a safety, quality, delivery sense. So there's a part to play in terms of the MD as well. So second one was practical problem solving with a team, year 2000. My first solo practical problem solving activity. We did the data analysis, pie charts and Paretos to find the biggest quality problem. And then with them, over the course of 2 days, I locked them in a room and created the world's biggest fishbone. Absolutely enormous. Without once, and I emphasize, without once going out of the room to confirm at each step, is this a potential cause of the problem? It was an extended speculation. It stopped just short of, well, an asteroid could have hit. If somebody had suggested it, I'd have put it on the fishbone. And so what I ended up with was a massive fishbone with lots of Post-its. And so when we came to do the 5 whys, where do you start? You've done no verification. You haven't gone, look, seen. You haven't narrowed the problem down. And again, the savaging I got for that one, I'm a very good problem solver now. I'm a very good coach at problem solving. I wasn't always.
Because you've learned.
I've learned and I've paid attention. And if you learn to self-reflect, then you will improve every day a little better.
I attended a Kaizen event a few months ago. I didn't attend day 1, so I joined on day 3. It was a 4-day event. And on day 3, they were doing like a recap of what they've done. And it was all, all the list of the things that the associate doesn't do and why they don't do it. And there are all these speculating and reasons why, all listed down on this spreadsheet. And I was like, have we actually asked the associate why they don't do those things? They're like, no, we know. And I'm like, but you haven't asked them. Yeah, but we know. And I was thinking, well, this isn't going to go the right way. If you don't actually ask them, I bet you'll be surprised. If you went down there and asked them the question, you ask all the people, not just one, some of the reasons that come out won't be on that spreadsheet. And you're missing the whole purpose.
Guarantee it. Was there an associate and operator involved? No. Was there a team leader involved?
So there was a team leader and a couple of line managers and all that. But again, they're distant from the process.
Yeah.
I get that, they want to move fast. We've got to get it done in 4 days. We need to move through this really, really quickly. But if you're not going to get the value out of it, you might as well not bother doing it. It's just wasting the 4 days because pound to a penny, they're going to have to go back and reanalyze that part of the process, I tell you, because it wasn't thorough enough for me.
Well, and even those times, even when you can't free an associate off the line for 4 days, and to be fair, you should be able to. Even when you can't, you can get them involved in the first half an hour. You can get them involved in the last half an hour, and you can take 15, 20-minute chunks each day just to ask them stuff.
Yeah,
and to update them and get their feel for it. Because if you don't, it's like doing 5S to somebody. If I came into your lounge and while you were upstairs recording, if I then moved your furniture around and said to you, it's better for you now, even if it was objectively, technically better, you're walking less far to go and get a beer or a brew, you would reject it. The body would reject the organ because I haven't asked you.
Yeah, but how dare you come in here and move all this around? What do you think you're playing at? I like my chair over there. But it's so true because the first thing you do is you get a group of managers together and we're going to go down and fix that problem. Yeah. Right, what's number 3?
The third one is nails and wrists, trousers and burrs. Now, nails and wrists was China 2007, which was my mistake. Trousers and burrs was Norfolk 2021, which shows that I'd learned. So, nails and wrists, I left a business to go freelance, actually, back in 2007, I think it was. And my good-natured punishment from the group director was to send me to babysit a plant in China for 2 weeks because the ops manager was away. And it was actually a nice punishment because I hadn't been to Shanghai at that point. It was a really good 2 weeks, hard 2 weeks. As part of it, I did some line balance. It was a new plant, so there were parts all over the show, line side, in carrier bags, in crates and that kind of thing. I did some line balance with them and I did some 5S with them. I was 4 days in, I'm sure it was 4 days in, before I noticed that a lot of the operators had scratches on their wrists.
Right.
And it was because they'd been reaching into these big wooden crates to get parts because there was no line side racking at that point. And they were scratching themselves on the nails that had been left when they prized the lid off.
Wow.
Now, that's a management failing. My failing was that I would preach left, right and centre, safety first, then quality, then delivery. But I failed to observe were the people being kept safe until day 4. Go forward 14 years, I was in a bespoke engineering company in Norfolk. We were looking at trying to improve the way they assembled a long lead time thing. The first thing I noticed was that John, our operator, he had scratches all the way down his trousers. And so with China in the back of my mind, I look at him and I look across and Andy's got scratches too. And Rob's got scratches. And it was because they were having to lean over bird up edges to get to the other side to assemble of what they're assembling. And those scratches were making their skin raw underneath, but they got sick of telling people.
Oh, wow.
But I spotted it early. That was a failure to practice.
And it's also showing the observation skills of your eyes. You're in there and straight away you're looking at what you see rather than what you think you should see. You're seeing what's actually there. Wood for the trees.
Quite right. But I was only very sensitive to that because I'd failed previously. So failure's a good thing.
Question for you, slightly off topic. With the line balancing you was doing when you went out to China, was you doing Yamazumi by any chance?
Yeah.
I love Yamazumi. It's my favourite lean exercise. I love it. Do you know how I like to do it? On a whiteboard with like every centimetre is a minute or something like that. And then you cut it out and then you stick it and you get the operators to stack it and move it around.
Yeah.
It's such a great exercise to do. I love it.
Do you know you can take that all kinds of ways. So Yamazumi translates as to pile in heaps. It's your line balance chart piled up. If you're really smart, then off your standardized work, you'll color code the elements, and the bars obviously are the same size as a cycle time relatively. Mm-hmm. You'll color code maybe green for value added, red for non-value added or waste. And you'll stack them up. And when you do your rebalance to get everybody below tact and improve your line balance ratio and efficiency, I've seen at the top boxes, January, February, March, April, May through to December. And as the team leader reduces waste, eliminates waste off the line, let's say element 4 is to go and get brackets. And that was taking 20 seconds. If they've moved them closer, so now it takes 10, they cut that strip in half, leave the 10 behind that's left, and they put the 10 in March if they did it in March. So you get a real-time monitor of where they're kaizening.
What a great visual as well. That's superb.
Beautiful.
Love it. See, I'm going to bank that one as my own. I'm going to magpie that.
I'll send you the photo. It's really good.
Yeah, thank you. It's brilliant.
So these two are about my approach. One of them is about a lean transformation I attempted with my employer. And the other one is it's a general point about overteaching. So I created a production system for my employer a global manufacturer back in 2005 to 6. And as part of it, based on my Toyota Sensei training, when you introduce lean thinking somewhere, it was all narrow and deep. So you find somewhere close to the customer, you work on something that's a specific problem, and you go narrow and deep, and you establish a model area, a pilot area. You'll know the pilot area approach.
Yep.
So 18 sites, 2 billion turnover. We wanted to level them all up. Interestingly, my gaffer had said, look, you're a skilled person when I first came in. If you think we're currently going this way, so north, say, on our lean journey, and you think we should be going south, whatever you do, don't put the anchors on. Can you do a nice little elegant curve and kind of nudge us on the right course so that it doesn't look like we cocked up before? Now, at that point, it didn't feel right, but I said, yeah, we can manage that elegantly. And that was a part of the root of the problem, because the model area rollout on the 18 sites went fine, because it's pretty simple. You get everybody seeing the right things. You can set the image of what you want. But my plan then was, having chosen a model area, a pilot area near the customer in their most important value stream per site, so a high volume value stream and a value stream that's there to stay, I then wanted them to crawl out from there and expand their model area to cover the value stream, process in front, process behind, and then we do some value stream mapping with them. The failure was that they were ready for model areas, because that's pretty universal. It's not difficult to do. There are certain things have to be in place to attempt to do a value stream transformation, and it's not always the right thing. And so despite fighting it over the years, I actually did a bit of a copy and paste there.
Right.
Fundamental lesson was that I pushed the solution on the value stream mapping. I didn't let them pull on a central resource. And I've said this to so many people. If you're looking to get your Kaizen promotion office, your lean people engaged in the business, create some hunger, create some pull in the business. Don't push activities on the businesses.
Such a common mistake, though, and it's such a well-made point. Got to be pull, not push.
I said it'd be quick. That wasn't quick, was it? So this one will be.
Oh, let's go for it.
Final one.
This is gold dust.
Final one. Overteaching. Now, I've given you years and locations for the other ones. This one could have been any time over the past 25 years. What I've found is, when you're passionate about something like I am and like you are about lean, and when you have a decent processing power, so you can join the dots, you can see, if we do this and we can do that and the other, there is a real risk of overteaching. So a number of times I've said to teams or to people I've coached, right, we want to do A and then we'll do B. And I should have stopped there. What I've then gone on to say is, okay, we'll do A, then B. Oh, by the way, C will follow, and then D, and then E will do this, and then F, and then G, and then eventually we'll get to Z. Looked at them and you've blown their mind. Not because you're smarter, but because you've trodden that path. It's obvious to you, but they can't see a clear image of the next step. You've introduced too much noise. And so it takes a brave man or woman. It takes a need to strip away ego, but simple is best. And you train a bit, try it, train a bit, try it. And you go through those escalating Kaizen cycles, and don't get too excited so you overteach.
And it's such a tempting thing to do, isn't it? That overteaching.
Especially if you're hardwired to pass knowledge. But it's one of those cases where less really is more. Again, you create a pull. You can lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink, but you can make them thirsty on the way.
Right, Russ, I'm going to put you to the test now with the yes-no game, the bit you've been looking forward to.
Boom.
Yeah, basically, there's 60 seconds on the clock. I'm going to ask you questions related to a particular subject, which you'll choose in a second. And you just cannot say yes, no, any form of yes, no, mm-hms, ahas, and see how long you can last. I'm going to try desperately to catch you out as well.
Okay.
Do you want card number 1, card number 2, or card number 3?
3.
Card number 3 is retro retail. So this is about retail outlets from the 1980s to the year 2000.
Okay, I might be all right.
This is, I haven't seen the questions yet. Let me just scroll down. Oh, I remember some of these. This is going to be good. This is a bit of nostalgia in this one. So the next thing you're going to hear is the music that puts some pressure on you. And basically, I will then start firing the questions. Just do not say yes or no.
Okay.
Right. No, yes or no. You can say anything else, but not yes or no, Russ. Have you ever rented a movie from Blockbuster Video?
Many times.
Can you name some iconic retail brands from the 1980s to the year 2000 that hold special memories for you?
Loads of them.
Can you name one?
I can name Woolworths.
Woolworths. Oh, I used to eat their pick and mix.
Pick and mix is fabulous.
Funnily enough, the next question is, did you shop at Woolworths for household items?
Often.
How have customer preferences and retail practices evolved since 1980s to the year 2000?
Good question. I think customers expect a bit more. I think they are wanting better service.
Better service?
Yeah. Oh,
Gotcha!
I mean, I was looking out for that one as well. I was looking out for that one.
Oh,
Livid,
Russ,
absolutely livid.
You've made my day, Russ. I feel like a new man. It's just, the joy.
Still, I can learn from that.
Yeah, learn from it. Yeah, ignore my follow-up questions and just wait for the next question. You were close, though. You weren't far off there. I think you were quite near the end. Well done, though. Anyways, a valiant effort. I think you've done yourself
Thank you
proud.
very much.
Right,
Thank
before
you.
I let you shoot off, where can people learn more about you? Where can they go?
So we've recently revamped our website to be clear on our offering, which is courses, coaching and consulting for lean and OPEX. It's www.senpai.co.uk. You can connect to me on LinkedIn, Russell Watkins at Senpai. We've got a YouTube channel, Lean Expert, where we have 60, 70 videos that simplify lean for everybody. And we've recently relaunched our scorecard. So again, go to LinkedIn, you can see our scorecard, and you'll also be able to see Senpai Guide, our digital app, our toolkit for shop floor leaders.
I massively recommend the YouTube videos as well. I've watched a few of them now and they are superb, absolutely superb. I will put the links to all of those places down in the description below so anyone can hop on and have a look, but definitely recommend checking out the YouTube videos. Thanks, Russ. You've been an absolute star.
Pleasure. I really enjoyed that. It's probably the most fun one I've done for a while.
Oh, good. I'll take that on. That can stay in. That's staying in on the edit, that one. Some key takeaways from today's discussion with Russell. Russ describes opening the kimono as a Japanese term originating from the 1890s, meaning showing a bit of yourself, some humility, a bit of the real you. It can help to build strong and trusting relationships. The practice creates a comfortable environment between hierarchies in organisations. If you're at the early stages of your career, there's no need to panic about the next steps. Take your time, try things, learn, and keep ploughing your own path. It'll work out in the end. Factories are microclimates. The shop floor is awash with knowledge, experience, politics, banter, and family-like units. Taking the time to involve and understand is well worth the investment. Russ's story from Lotus about visiting Belgium and then Peru to understand why the windscreens were cracking is a prime example of time, money and effort being wasted, where just engaging with operators directly would have provided the information that was required. Imposter syndrome feeds on our insecurities. It can lead to us to be defensive, reluctant to show vulnerability and humility. In our minds, we can feel that if we show a lack of understanding, ask a question, make a mistake, or show weakness, in inverted commas, that people will lose respect for us, judge us, or mock us. But in reality, very few people will judge us for this. However, there is evidence to suggest that the perception of vulnerability and humility is often viewed more positively by others than those experiencing imposter syndrome might anticipate. Sharing doubts, asking questions, or admitting to a lack of understanding can actually enhance trust and collaboration in professional and personal relationships. This aligns with concepts of psychological safety and a growth mindset. Now, coaching and development of others is an incredibly rewarding exercise. It's also a fantastic way to learn and develop yourself as a leader and as a coach. If you want to turbocharge your coaching skills and have a lifetime access to supporting materials, the online Toyota Improvement Cutter and Coaching Cutter Basics course is a great place to start. It's inexpensive and provides a brilliant framework that you can apply anywhere. You can find the link down below in the description. Research supports the idea that using appropriate humour can be a valuable tool for building relationships and enhancing learning. Humour can stimulate positive emotions, improve memory retention, reduce stress, foster communication, and create a sense of camaraderie among individuals. It's a powerful tool for making connections and facilitating effective learning and communication. Now, Russ spoke about how, as we age, we tend to feel more comfortable and secure about admitting where we could have done perhaps things a bit better in the past. The examples Russ gave fell into 3 categories. He spoke about activities, about places he'd failed to practice what he'd learned. He spoke about planning in lean transformation and how he got it wrong. This got me thinking about the mistakes I've made in my career. I found it a bit of a cleansing exercise thinking about what I'd learned over the years. Something I can't recommend enough for you as an individual or even as a group exercise to do with your team. You don't have to share your reflections, but encouraging the thinking process is a valuable one. Reflecting on past mistakes and areas of improvement in your career is beneficial because it promotes personal and professional growth. It enhances self-awareness, improves decision-making, and can make a valuable exercise for teams, fostering a culture of continuous improvement and accountability. All in all, this was a fantastic conversation, and I'm so pleased that Russ came on and told us about his experiences and his learnings and really made it feel like it's a normal experience that we all go through, and there's no shame in admitting you made a mistake or learning from those mistakes. We are human beings. That's what we do. Right, that brings us to an end of this episode of the Ever So Lean podcast. Thanks to Russ for joining us today and opening the kimono, talking about his failures, his learnings, and the benefits of talking about failures, how it can help us improve in the future. It's truly the best way to learn. If you like the sound of today's show and would like to hear more, please subscribe and follow the Ever So Lean podcast at eversolean.com. We'll also find episodes that you may have missed. If you can, please take a moment to like and review the Ever So Lean podcast on the platform that you listened on. I'd be extremely grateful, and each review means so much, and I really do appreciate every single one. If you're on the socials, check us out, give us a like, give us a follow, let me know about your lean efforts. Thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Ever So Lean podcast. And don't forget, Ever So Lean. You know it makes sense. The Ever So Lean podcast is researched, produced and recorded by Matt Sims. Visit eversolean.com to find out more.